What's up, YouTube fam? Back for part 10. You're keen. Either that or gluttons for punishment, I don't know. But anyway, it's like Groundhog Day around here because I've had a bit of a fuck up with the green and the skull stencils, so I've basically had to take it all back to metal and start again. Just the joys of painting, you know. That's what they call it anyway. Might call it something else, but this is part 10. I'm also doing the frame with Raptor liner this episode, so you can check that out. It's turned out really good. I'm really pleased with it. It's exactly what I was looking for. So I'm waiting for a couple of bits and pieces to get made, spacers and whatnot, but I'll just wait because the frame needs 7 days to go off cure, and it needs something like 28 days to fully cure before you can use it, like throw stuff at it if you like, you know. So that's where we're at. It's a bit similar to the last video. I've still not got candy anywhere, but I've got up to the point that I'm going to be putting candy on. So you can check it out if you like, and remember to put a like down the bottom, subscribe, and tell all your friends what a fantastic fucking channel it is. Buckle up, here we go. The flake has landed, fucking finally, a week after I ordered it. Anyway, let's not moan, it's Friday. This is the size of it, it's 0.008 of an inch, or 200 micron. I've got 50 grams here, which is way too much. However, it wasn't much more than 25 grams, so I just got it for future use. And I'm not sure if it'll pick it up in the camera, but look at all those delightful rainbow of colours on it. And good old Earl, this guy's pretty decent to deal with, to be honest. He usually gets his stuff up the road from, I think it's Southampton, in about 2 days. So use him. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it, and then you have to order it from America or whatever, and you wait bloody months for it. So good service from Earl. Thank you, mate. Let's get it on the bike. The last time I flaked the tank and the panels and all the rest of it, I used, I think it was 40 grams. However, that was because I had the wrong settings. So that was for 400 millilitres. This time I'm going to be using 300 millilitres at the most, but I'm not going to mix up 300 millilitres in case I don't need it all. So what I'll do is I'll mix up 200 millilitres for a start. That's 100 ml of base coat, 100 ml of thinners, and then I'll add, for 200 mils, I'll add 20 grams, and then I'll also mix another 100 mils up if I need it later on, and I'll have 10 grams. So what I do before I do that is, because I'm anal, I'll get the scales out and I'll weigh it out to 20 grams and 10 grams, and I'll put them in a separate bag so that when I go out to mix the paint up, I'll know that it'll be the same for each mix, yeah? So I'll put 20 grams in one bag, 10 grams in the next bag, and that'll do me 200 millilitres and 100 millilitres. That makes sense, doesn't it? Obviously, if you've got more to do, then make it into bigger bags, you know. If you're going to be using 500 millilitres and you're making two mixes of 250, put 25 in each bag, and that'll be you sorted. Right, let's go and get some fucking flake on, baby. So always use a fresh cup, get your gloves on, 100 ml of this base coat binder, 100 ml of universal thinner. There you go, 200 mils there, and then I will add to it my 20 gram bag, which is this one, and then I'll mix it up and make another look and see how sparkly it is. Ooh, look, it's sparkly. And if you take it up in the ruler, you can see there just how much coverage you've got, you know, in the actual binder. You can see it glistening off of there. That's more than enough, I think. I could probably even have gone a bit more on the base coat and the binder to the flake with this. I might put another 20 mil. No, I won't. Will I? I might put another 20 mil of each in and see what it looks like. I'll just go a bit further, and it'll give you a thinner coat, I guess. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add 20 mil of thinner, 20mm of binder, same amount of flake. Now I've added the extra 20mm of each. You know, there's still masses of flake in there for what you need. So we'll get 250ml of liquid, and we'll put that through the... Ooh, which gun will I have today? This one here. This is the FLG, I believe. Finish line by DeVille Bliss. And this is the 1.8 tip. You can see there, it's got quite a big tip in it. That's what you want. Now this bottom, see my thumb's pointing up, my finger's pointing up? That's your fluid. What you want to do is, see the trigger that I'm holding in? You wind it all the way in until the trigger comes out to the stop at the front here, and then wind it back out about two and a half turns. It takes about 3.5, I think, from fully in to fully out. I usually go about 2.5, and this top screw here, I just open it up until I've got a full fan pattern, but I'll spray it against a bit of card or something first, just to check what my coverage is like and how much fluid I'm getting coming out of it. And I'll be spraying it at 2 bar. So, like I say, got a pressure gauge there. I've got a water trap in line. I've drained the compressor. We're ready to fucking rock and roll, baby. Another thing I should mention, see when you're spraying this on, don't go too heavy on the coats. Right? Don't filter it, put it straight from the pot, straight into the pot. Don't go heavy in the coats, because what will happen is, if you put it on too heavy, it'll start sagging, and then you'll get lines of really thick flake as it sags in the panel. So just go lightly, a bit like the candy, lots of light coats, yeah, till you get the coverage that you're looking for. Let's go. That's one coat on. It's not made a huge difference to the colour, to be fair, but like I say, it's only one coat. I'll be getting at least another 2 or 3 coats, and I've used 100 millilitres to do this. So what I've done is, because I'm going to have to wait for this to dry a bit, even though it's a bit windy here today, what I usually do is, I shall take you through to the paint station, is I empty my gun back into the pot, because as you can see, like, see if you look in the top there, there's hardly any metal flake because it's all sunk to the bottom. Yeah, but if you give it a whirl, it all comes back. So you don't want that sitting in your gun. I also turn my gun upside down while I'm waiting, because you don't want this clogging up with flake. Yeah, so just empty it back out, turn it upside down, leave the lid tight, it won't go anywhere, you know. And then you come to do your next coat, just refill it, and away you go. You're ready for another coat. Okay, just a couple of tips, because if you've never done it before, you won't know these things. Second coat's on. I've mixed up my last 100 mils, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside and get another 10 grams and make that up to 200 mils, because I'll tell you for why, I'll show you for why. Even with the second coat on, it's still pretty green. I was hoping it would go more silver by now, so it's obviously going to need another couple of coats, you know, to get it to a reasonable, the colour that I want, basically. But like I say, another reason you don't want to put on too much is these decals can crinkle if you put on too much at once. So I'm going to leave that for a good 20 minutes, half an hour, and then I'll come back to it. Right, well, that's about 4 coats on it. I've got one more left. It's getting nearer the silver that I wanted, less green. As you can see, you can still see the green in it, but it's not as green. So I can't overemphasise that you don't want to put lots of material on at once when you're doing this, because if you do, the stickers will crinkle up, the decals will crinkle up with the thinners, and it'll become a fucking mess. So just do light coats and lots of them. If you look at that sticker, see that sticker there? You can see it's starting to lift. So what I'll do is I'll just push it back down. I hope that works, but if it doesn't, we're fucked. But yeah, there's another one if you look at the side. See that little bit there? Where am I? that little bit is like that. That's now when the decals is lifting. So we'll just push it back down. I mean, I've not long coated this. So what they'll sometimes do if you put too much on is they'll crinkle and then they'll flatten out again. But you don't want it to crinkle in the first place. You can see that one there is slightly crinkled, but it's just on the outside of it, so we'll not worry too much. It's possibly because it's drying quickly as well, but the thinners in the mix doesn't help. Decals and thinners don't go on too well, but so I should have maybe mixed it a bit less thinners, maybe 70% of the intercoat and 30 of thinners, but it is what it is. It's there's another one at the side there. God, I hope it doesn't end up a balls up, should I say. No, it's okay, it's just gone down. But if you do that, and then you keep laying more and more stuff on it, it will definitely just lift and become a mess. So don't do that. Just use lots of light coats and maybe use about 70-30 base coat to thinner, if it's thin enough to go through the gun, that is. Okay, I've also used 40 grams of metal flakes so far, but like I say, it's getting to the colour I want. You know, you can still see where the decals are for peeling them off. You don't want them to disappear completely or you're pulling off edges. You don't want to do that when you take the decals off. Right, well, that's about 5 coats on it. That's as silver as it gets. You can see the decals there, the coverage of the silver. That's a good way to tell that it's changing, is by just checking the colour of the decals. So I've used 40 grams, in about 500 millilitres all told, and it's probably had about 5 coats, 100 millilitres a coat. So I'll just go and switch that noisy compressor off, and afterwards we'll peel the decals off and see what it's like. Well, I'm taking these masks off, and it's not looking that great, to be honest. You know, I'll pull a few more off, but there's no lettering to be seen. I thought you might be able to read some of them, you know, some of the bigger ones, but it's not really happening. So I'll take the rest off, see what it looks like. If it looks like shit, we'll be starting again with a different design, which I suspect is what's going to happen because it's looking pretty shit so far. But oh well, nothing ventured, nothing gained and all that, I guess. Well, that's a disappointment. After what? Well, I've been on this since 11. It's now 4:45. So that's like 6 hours today, and probably 2 days of picking all these masks out. And I've got to be honest, it looks like shit. You know, I mean, you can kind of see what they are, but you can't even make out the Bandit right lettering or there's never mind the school, even on the big stickers. You know, so I think we'll be having a take 2 on this one, and I'm gonna go for something completely different. I'm just gonna sand the fucking whole lot off. Oh god, painting, eh? What a fucking nightmare. The tank's not much better, if I'm honest. That's it there. You know, if the lettering came out, it would have looked really good. But as it is, it just looks like shit. So, it looks like shit. It's not getting on my bike. Simple as that. And it looks shit. So, I'll wait till it dries and then I'll just sand the whole fucking lot off and start again. Hey ho. Well, we're back to square one. This has just been epoxied. I'll like to fill it once it dries and sand it, and then we'll go for some primer on that and the other panels. We'll just start again. After you've epoxied it, what you want to do is check out the finish. You usually don't get a excellent finish with epoxy because it's quite thick stuff. So what you want to do before you primer it is get some 800 grit on it, and you also want to fill in your holes and dents. You see there's a dent there, and there's a few around the filler cap. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that must have been where the guy was trying to prise the cap open. But yeah, I would have used 600, but I didn't have any, so I'm using 800. So sue me. I might go back to the school design. I found another half a dozen or so of these that I've managed to pick out yesterday. We'll decide later. But if I do go back to it, I'll be airbrushing them. So, like I say, before you put your high build primer on, which is the next step, is fill and sand your dents and all that, and then sand the whole lot down with 600 or 800 grit paper. I wouldn't go any higher than that, to be honest, because you want it to take a good hold. If you go 1,000, it'll just make it too shiny, if you like. So you want something like 600 ideally, but I've only got 800, so that's what I'm using. Fuck it. Right, this is the filler I'm going to use for the tank. It's called Dolphin Glaze, and it's actually meant for going over normal filler, if you like, to just give it a really fine flat surface for painting on. But it works fine on these smaller indentations, I guess you could call them. So if you get yourself some of this, if you've just got little dents like that, and little dents like the top, you don't need to use the proper filler, if you like, for it. And if you also want to get yourself one of these things are great. It's called a onion board. And what you do is you mix up your filler on it, and then once you're finished, you just peel the paper off and sling it in the bin. As you can see, there's quite a lot of sheets of paper on it. I've had this for about 6 months. I just use normal red filler, hardener, should I say. Another bit of tip is to give this a squeeze it around before you actually put it out, because the contents of it can settle inside, and you want it mixed. And what I'll do is I'll pour the stuff out, because it is pretty watery, and it'll probably pool like a circular shape, and then just for your hardener, just go from the centre of the circle out to the edge, and that should give you enough. It's meant to be 50-1, okay? So we'll mix that up and get it on. That should be plenty. That's the filler on. As you can see, I've feathered the edges of it. Just makes it easier for sanding. But make sure you put enough on to cover it. You don't want it level with the surface of the paint, because it shrinks and it dries slightly, so you want it slightly higher. That's the dent there. Same again, the edges are kind of feathered out. And the top, I've just splodged it on, basically. But it's flat, and what I did to do that was just use the filler from the centre out, and that's filled it up. That's the remains. What you do is just bin that, clean this with a bit of petrol or a bit of thinners, and you'll be able to use it again if you're a tight arse like me, which I am. And that should be okay. Just check it once it's done. I think this one here actually needs a little bit more, because I'm seeing a slight indent in the middle of it, so I'll put a little bit more on before it goes off. Another quick bit about fillers. Make sure you mix this stuff up thoroughly before you apply it, okay? And when you apply it, you need to push it into the hole, not just skim over the top, or you'll end up with air bubbles in it. And then you sand it and paint it, you'll see the pinholes, right? So don't do that. And if you've got a big dent, like say this was maybe, I don't know, 5mm, something like that, then use the other filler, obviously, and build it up in layers. Don't put it all in at once. That's what I do anyway, and it seems to work. And when you're sanding it, say you had a big dent and you'd finally filled it up to the top, what you want to do is get a block and use quite an abrasive grit to start with, something like a 120. Don't start with 600, because what you want to do is you want the sandpaper to cut through the filler. If you use a 600, what you'll end up with, say that was the big hole there, is, I'll over exaggerate it obviously, but if you use the 600, it'll come along and then it'll follow the line of the filler. Either that, or you'll dig out the sides, so it'll go down, then up, then down. So use a 120 to start sanding it. Don't finish it with a 120, just to get the worst of it off till it's getting close to level, and then go up to say a 320 grit sandpaper, right? Go a little bit further with the 320, and you'll scratches all the way around the side from the sandpaper, obviously, and then go up to 600, and your 600 will sand out all the scratches, and it'll level out the surface to make it perfect for painting, okay? So that's how I do it, and it works. You can do it whatever way you like, but I'll stick to what works. Alright, that's the filler sanded. You'll see that it's beyond the area just, but that's fine. It's smooth and it's level. I started this stuff with 240 grit, and then I went up to 400. As you can see, I've gone through to the metal slightly there, and also on the rim, went through in a couple of bits. I'll not worry about it because I'm away to high build it right now, sort of style. So if you're leaving it about, you'd have to spot prime these bits, but because I'm literally away to spray it, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to high build over it. Same with this one, 240 grit. Do it in a diagonal pattern, sand in a diagonal pattern, and that way you'll see where you're going, if that makes sense. Don't like go around in circles, whatever you do, because you'll end up sanding the edges and the middle will be high. So get your block and go around in diagonal patterns. And then another tip is to use your hand, shut your eyes and use your hand and just run it over it, and you'll feel if it's high, generally, because your fingers are pretty sensitive. You know, if you close your eyes, it helps. I've noticed anyway. But yeah, that's us ready for primer. Let's go. Once I'm just primered, you can see that you can't see any lumps or bumps where the filler is. That's a good sign. This one here, it's been, I haven't scratched out I haven't sanded out even the bigger scratch marks, so I'm going to have to give this another couple of coats. Front mudguard's okay, just this tail piece bit, just on the sides there's a couple of bits that you can see, but by the time it's filled with this primer filler it'll be okay. So that's the first coat. I will give it another coat and that'll do it, and then we'll go on to colours. After I've sanded it, obviously. Sand it down with 600 before you put the colour on, remember. Leave it at least a day to dry before you sand it, remember, okay? And then you'll be golden. Don't know if it'll pick it up here, but there's still some scratches. Can you see them? I can see them in the light. However, they've got a decent enough coat now, a primer, that it can be sanded out. But that's what I mean, it's all in the prep, you see. That wasn't prepped properly, so that's my fault really. I should have sanded it more. Live and learn. Next up we're doing the frame and the raptor liner. Right, frame's getting ready for raptor lining. I have taken a red Scotch-Brite, which is about 400 grit, and sanded down my primer. It's got epoxy primer underneath this primer, but there's a couple of wears in the bottom tube where it had been sitting. So what I'll do is I'll tilt the frame forward, like so. And then I'll spray all this underneath side at the back. Spray all this. Yep. And then I'll tilt the frame. I'll tilt it so that the tube at the back sitting on the deck and the front ends up. Really important that you mask everything, because this stuff will not come off. It's an absolute fucking nightmare. So mask all your bearing cups. And you also need to mask all your threads. So either use old bolts or use some masking tape. These aren't so important because it's obviously a through bolt. And there's a bit of play in it. So put all your bolts in and your masking on. Mask up all the threads, these little ones as well. And then once you've painted it, you need to take all that masking off within about half an hour of you finishing painting. So be sure you can get access to it. If you don't take it out after then, you won't get it out. It'll be fucking glued in solid. So I'm using the old Raptor here. This is what we've got. Raptor Black, 711 millilitres. Quite appropriate. And you need to shake this stuff to death before you use it for a good 2 minutes. I'm also using the Raptor hardener. That stuff there. The ratios are, I believe it's 3:1, like that. Hardener does that bottle. So obviously I won't be mixing it all up at once. I'll be maybe starting off with something like 400 millilitres. Might actually do the whole frame with that, but we'll see how it goes. If I need more, I can mix up more. And we'll be running it through the 1.8 spray gun. This bad boy here, excuse my finger in the way. And we'll be running it at least 3 bar. You need higher pressure for Raptor, and you're actually meant to spray it through a shoots gun. I don't have a shoots gun, and I'm not buying one, so this is good. This is going to have to do. This is a 1.8 primer gun, my good one, I hasten to add. So I hope it doesn't wreck it like the metal flake did. But that's what I've got, so that's what I'm using. So like I say, put up the air pressure and always test it out. This is my tester board here, as you can see. Test it out before you put it on. The further away from the item that you're spraying, you'll get a smaller grit pattern. That's all the holes bunged now. I'll just use bits of cardboard, bits of paper, should I say, and some earplugs. Earplugs are really good if you have them to spare. I only had 6, so hey ho. The rest of it's just, I'll actually use the earplug packet on these 2 bad boys here, so just push it right through. That one's with a bit of cardboard in the back, the earplug in the front. The coil holes, the tank mounting hole. So that's everything that's threaded, apart from this. But that's the centre stand, which I won't be using, so I'm not worried about it. So we'll get some Raptor on. So the Raptor's all shaking, it's ready to mix. Hardener's all ready, waiting. What I use is these gradients on the side. See, it says 3 to 1. That's the mixture. 1 part hardener, 3 parts Raptor. So what you do is you fill it up to, just say this one here, Raptor, then up to this one here with the hardener, and then this is for your thinners. You get 10, 20, 30%. I'll be going between 10 and 20, maybe about 15% of thinners. Okay, it's proper thinners, by the way. I'll be using the MIPA stuff. Okay, and that should be it, ready to spray. Like I say, higher PSI in your spray gun and test it first before you put anything near the frame. Okay, what do you think? That's the frame Raptored. Had a bit of a fuck up here, like the front down tube. It's because I did it the wrong way around. I did it like that, and then I turned it up. So of course I scraped all the down tube in the bloody table. The first coat, I've given it 2 coats, and it's looking wicked, I think. You see the texture on it? It's just a light texture, which is exactly what I wanted. It just kind of looks like matte black. So happy days. I'm delighted with that. So I'll get all the plugs out before it sets, and then will be all the bash. I'll have a look at it once it's dried, make sure it's all even, I've not missed anything, because it's easy to miss. It's easy stuff to use though, I must admit. Just pump up the pressure. I ended up about 3 bar on it, and obviously at 3 bar you use more material because you're obviously putting more air through it, but it's turned out well. I like it. You know, it's kind of like a satin finish, I guess, but it looks wicked. Happy days, man, happy days. Tell me what you think in the comments. This has started to dry now, so I'm getting a better look at it. That's not maybe the best bit to look at, but anyway. It's actually not as thick as I thought it would be, if I'm honest. You know, you can still see the holes there where the rivets went in, so it's obviously not as thick as like primers or whatever. But it's still pretty thick stuff, like for spraying. But it's easy enough, like I say, just pump up the pressure. But yeah, I fucking love it, if I'm honest. I was actually thinking about just painting the frame black, and I thought, oh, this Raptor's going to look shit, but it actually doesn't. It looks fucking great, in my opinion. It'll look really good with the gloss engine against this like satin finished frame, I reckon. Let me know your thoughts. Think it looks like a fucking farmer's plough, or do you think it looks alright? Let me know. Just to say, I've re-primered all this gear again. It was okay, like, but it just needed a bit more build on it, so it's looking there. 2 coats and everything. This one needed filled because it had the scratch marks down the side. It was actually quite rough up close, but now it's looking mint. Mudguard was okay. I also redid the frame. This is where it was all scraped down here. It looked fucking hideous, so get an idea of the finish we're looking at. Sweet! Sweet! And also, if I can squeeze my fat arse through here, I took this out so that I could get these parts, the parts underneath there, and the parts underneath there, because obviously they were still in primer, and these bits. And I did the side stand with the Raptor as well. I think it looks alright, but I would say that, wouldn't I? Yeah, it looks fine. So I'm quite happy with it now. So now we wait for it to dry. So this stuff takes 7 days, no rain, no water anywhere near it for 7 days. And then it takes like 21 days to cure. But to touch it up, all you do is use a bit of red scotch, which is 400 grit, and give it a key, basically. I mean, I had to sand off some bits with this because when I'd scraped it, the edges had built up. So I sanded it right back. But you can see there, it's come in nice. So what I did was I sanded it just out in the primer that's underneath this, and then give it another 2 coats or so. I just used up the rest of the Raptor, so I've maybe, I think I used 150, 160 mil, but I didn't do the whole frame. I just did these down tubes, and what I did was I did the sides of the main rail and the top of the main rail again, both sides obviously, because you want it all to match. Yeah, but yeah, quite a nice finish on it, I think. So next up, this little lot is getting base coated in silver once it dries, and if the wind blows down, because you can see the bike thing there's getting a bit of a blow about, you don't want to paint in windy days, it's just fucking not on. So I mean, this is quite a sheltered little corner of my garden because I'm in the north of Scotland, but you'd ideally want to do it when there's low wind, maybe just a very, very light wind to keep the beasts away, you know, if you're doing it outside. I mean, I have a paint booth in here and behind here, but the extraction on it's shit, so when you clear coat stuff you just end up in clouds of clear, and it's really not healthy, so I prefer to just do it outside now. And I mean, folks, you won't get as good a job outside, but you will. It just means you have to do a bit more flattening and polishing at the end, you know, to get rid of any little nibs or whatever, bits of dust and stuff. You know, as long as you've got low wind and you've not got a load of stuff blowing onto it, you'll get a perfectly acceptable finish. I wouldn't say it's top class, but it's perfectly acceptable, and I'm fussy, so there you go. Right, YouTube fam, it's still a little bit windy, but I've stuck the first coat of silver on there. It's not turned out too bad so far. I've got another coat obviously, and then I might put some of that holographic flake on it, we'll see. But that's the first coat down. It's 2 bar, the paint's mixed 2 to 1. It's a silver, heavy silver metallic, and the candies on top of it always with this silver generally looks pretty damn good. So right, YouTube fam, that's the second coat of silver on. It's looking alright. I took them inside because I didn't want them to dry too fast, because what will happen is, if you get too much wind or too much heat on a panel, it'll skin, like the top surface will skin over, and the solvent doesn't have anywhere to go from underneath to evaporate out. So what it'll do is it'll come through your paint, and you'll end up with loads of little holes all over the place, pinholes. You don't want that, so just in order to prevent it, I decided to take it inside. So that's where we're at so far. Next up, we'll be putting on some, I might put on some holographic flakes on it. I'm waiting for some silver chrome flake to arrive. It's slightly bigger than the last step, so it should cover a bit better. But I'm also going to put it over silver instead of black, which means I'll need less flake to cover it, because if you do it over black, you have to basically cover the entire fucking panel. And the last time I did it, it took about 5 or 6 coats through the primer gun, and it's wrecking my primer gun, so I don't really want to put any more coats than I have to through it. So that's where we're at. Next up, we'll be putting on some candies, I promise.